Hey everyone, and welcome back to Safe, Simple Sound. I'm your host, Alex. Today, we're diving deep into the crucial topic of family financial security, specifically for those of you between the ages of 35 and 44. Today's episode is inspired by a great article titled Family Financial Security Protecting Your Growing Prosperity, which really got me thinking about how we can empower families to build a secured financial future. Remember, at Safe, Simple Sound, secured is our guiding principle, emphasizing seizing financial control, embracing cash flow mastery, creating safety nets, and more, all leading to a lasting legacy. This article highlights a fascinating paradox. Many professionals who are meticulous about security at work often have surprising gaps in their family's financial safety net. It also emphasizes the unique challenges of this life stage, juggling multiple digital identities, complex finances, and even growing business interests. But with these challenges come incredible opportunities to build stronger protection. We at Safe Simple Sound believe in embracing these opportunities and creating financial flexibility for whatever life throws your way. So, how do we navigate this complex landscape? Well, today's episode is structured to give you clear, actionable steps. First, we'll tackle protecting your children's financial identity. We'll explore real-life scenarios like the stolen SSN and the data breach, offering practical advice on monitoring credit reports and securing sensitive information. It's all about understanding financial choices and protecting your family. Then, we'll move on to securing both business and personal finances, something particularly relevant for entrepreneurs and side hustlers. We'll unpack scenarios like the entangled entrepreneur and the side hustle security gap to help you create clear boundaries and robust protection. Next, we'll explore safeguarding those precious college savings. We'll discuss the 529 plan vulnerability and lost documentation scenarios, providing tips on securing accounts and organizing crucial documents. This ties directly into creating a financial safety net and reaping the benefits of compound growth for your children's future. Finally, we'll delve into the behavioral side of security, addressing common biases like overconfidence and the status quo trap. We'll use scenarios like the overconfident family and the status quo trap to illustrate how these biases can impact your family's financial well-being. Get ready for a practical and empowering discussion filled with real-world examples and actionable takeaways. Let's build a secured financial future for your family, one step at a time. Let's start with a real-world scenario we're calling the stolen SSN. Imagine this. The Thompson family, just like many of our listeners, thought they were being careful. They kept their son's social security card locked away and were generally cautious online. But when 12-year-old Ethan tried to open his first bank account, they were shocked to discover someone had already used his social security number to open several credit cards and even take out a loan. This scenario, unfortunately, isn't uncommon. Sam, can you shed some light on this? At what age should parents start monitoring their child's credit?
Ideally, monitoring should begin as early as possible. While children shouldn't have any credit history, checking periodically helps establish a baseline and allows you to detect any fraudulent activity quickly. Think of it like a regular checkup, but for their financial health. You're looking for anything unexpected, any sign of activity that shouldn't be there.
So even before they're teenagers, I always assumed it was something you'd start thinking about when they were closer to getting their first credit card.
Exactly, Taylor. The earlier the better, because the damage caused by identity theft can take years to unravel. A child's clean credit history is a prime target for fraudsters. They can exploit it for a long time before anyone notices. The Thompson story, unfortunately, is a classic example of this.
That's a powerful point, Sam. This brings us to our second question. What concrete steps can parents take to secure a child's SSN and other sensitive information?
Multiple layers of protection are essential. Start by securing physical documents, birth certificates, social security cards, in a safe place, ideally a locked fireproof safe or a secure digital vault. Limit who has access to this information. Be selective about sharing your child's SSN, even with schools or extracurricular activities. Often, they don't actually need it.
This reminds me of what we discussed earlier about overconfidence bias. We can't assume that institutions will automatically protect our information, even if they seem trustworthy.
Right, Taylor. It's about being proactive and questioning the necessity of sharing such sensitive data.
Precisely. And as kids get older, educate them about online safety and the importance of protecting their personal information. This includes strong passwords, being wary of phishing scams, and understanding the risks of sharing information online. Think of it as adding layers to their financial armor as they grow.
So, we've talked about early monitoring and securing sensitive information. Are there any other preventative measures, Sam?
Absolutely. Consider placing a freeze on your child's credit with each of the three major credit bureaus, Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. This effectively blocks anyone from opening new accounts in their name without your explicit permission. It's a powerful tool, especially given how vulnerable children are to identity theft.
So if I understand correctly, even though my kids are young, I should check their credit reports, secure their SSN like I would my own, and consider a credit freeze. It feels a little overwhelming, but the Thompson family's story really highlights why it's so important.
It's definitely better to be safe than sorry. And remember, this isn't a one-time fix. It's an ongoing process of monitoring, educating, and adapting to new threats. So, in this segment, we explored the critical importance of protecting children's financial identities, using the Thompson family's experience as a cautionary tale. We learned about early credit monitoring, securing sensitive documents, educating children about online safety, and the power of credit freezes. The key takeaway? Don't wait until it's too late. Check your child's credit report today and set up regular monitoring. It's a crucial first step in safeguarding their financial future. But what happens when the threat comes from a seemingly trustworthy source, like a school or an extracurricular activity? That's what we'll discuss next, with a scenario focused on data breaches and how they can impact your children's financial well-being. Let's shift gears to another scenario, the data breach. Imagine this. Your child's school experiences a data breach. Suddenly, their name, address, birth date, maybe even social security number is out in the open. This isn't just a hypothetical situation, it's becoming increasingly common. Sam, from a security perspective, how can parents even begin to assess the data security practices of schools and other organizations before entrusting them with our children's information?
It's a crucial question, Alex. Transparency is key. Parents should feel empowered to ask schools and other organizations about their data security policies and procedures. Start by looking for their privacy policies. They should clearly outline what data is collected, how it's stored, and who has access to it. Do they mention encryption? Do they have a data breach response plan? These are critical indicators. Don't hesitate to contact the school administration or IT department directly for clarification. Think of it like checking the safety ratings of a car before you buy it. You want to know it's built to protect what's precious.
That makes sense. But sometimes those privacy policies are dense and filled with jargon. How can we as parents really understand what we're reading? It feels overwhelming.
You're right, Taylor. Look for key phrases like data encryption, multi-factor authentication, and regular security audits. If these aren't mentioned, that's a red flag. And don't be afraid to ask for clarification. A reputable organization will be happy to explain their practices in plain language.
And Taylor brings up another important point. What happens after a breach? Let's say the worst has happened and a child's data has been compromised. What steps should parents take?
First, file a police report. This creates a formal record of the incident. Then, contact the credit bureaus to place a fraud alert or even a credit freeze on your child's credit report. Yes, even minors can have a credit file created fraudulently. Closely monitor your child's accounts and credit reports for any suspicious activity. Consider identity theft protection services, some of which specialize in protecting children.
So if I understand correctly, being proactive is crucial. We shouldn't wait for a breach to happen. We need to be asking these questions up front and taking preventative measures.
Exactly, Taylor. A proactive approach is the best defense. And as Sam mentioned, understanding and utilizing resources like credit freezes and identity theft protection services can be invaluable. So, in this scenario of a data breach, we learned how vital it is to understand data security practices, not just react to incidents. Asking the right questions and understanding key security terms empowers us to protect our children's sensitive information. Sam highlighted the importance of transparency and proactive communication with schools and organizations. And Taylor reminded us of the practical steps we can take, like credit freezes and identity theft protection, in the event of a breach. Your call to action for this week: review the privacy policies of any institution that collects your child's information. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Your child's data security is worth the effort. Now, protecting our children's data is just one piece of the family security puzzle. Many of us are also juggling the complexities of our own businesses, which introduces a whole new layer of security concerns. Next, we'll delve into the challenges faced by entrepreneurs. Our next scenario is called the entangled entrepreneur. Imagine a small business owner juggling the demands of a growing company while also managing family finances. They might use the same bank account for both, maybe even the same credit card. It seems convenient at first, but this entanglement creates serious security vulnerabilities and can lead to a tax nightmare. So, Sam, as our security expert, what are the best practices for separating business and personal finances?
The absolute cornerstone is separate accounts. Business checking, business savings, business credit card, distinct from your personal ones. This isn't just good practice, it's essential for liability protection, accurate financial tracking, and a much smoother tax season.
So, if I understand correctly, even if my business is small, like a freelance writing gig, I should still have separate accounts. It seems like overkill.
It's not overkill, Taylor. Think of it like this. You wouldn't wear your gardening gloves to a job interview, right? Different contexts require different tools. Mixing personal and business finances blurs the lines, making it harder to track income and expenses, potentially leading to missed deductions or even legal issues down the line.
That's a great analogy, Sam. And this ties back to what we discussed about compartmentalization in the reference article. We might be diligent in one area, like business operations, but leave other areas vulnerable, like financial organization.
This reminds me of our conversation about the Thompson family. Their lack of organization led to a serious security breach. I can see how the same principle applies to business finances, too. If everything is mixed up, it's harder to spot irregularities.
Exactly, Taylor. Now, moving to our second question: how can entrepreneurs protect both their business and personal assets from cyber threats? Sam?
The principle of separation applies here too. Separate email accounts, separate devices where possible, and strong, unique passwords for every account. Consider using a password manager. It's a lifesaver.
So, if I'm using my personal laptop for some business tasks, what precautions should I take?
At the very least, create a separate user profile on your laptop specifically for business. This will create a degree of separation between your files and activities. Ideally, though, a dedicated business device is the safest option.
And think about the types of information you're accessing. Are you handling sensitive client data? If so, what measures are in place to protect that information? This ties into the article's recommendation for integrated security strategies.
Absolutely. And consider cyber insurance. It can help mitigate the financial impact if a breach does occur, both for your business and potentially your personal assets if they're interconnected.
So, to recap, separating business and personal finances is crucial for both security and organizational sanity. Separate accounts, devices, and strong passwords are your first line of defense. Think different contexts, different tools.
And recognizing those behavioral biases we've talked about, like compartmentalization and overconfidence, can help us avoid those security blind spots.
Absolutely. We encourage all our listeners, especially entrepreneurs, to consult with a financial advisor to establish clear boundaries between your business and personal accounts. This will protect both your financial future and your peace of mind. Now, what if your business isn't your main gig? Next, we'll discuss the unique challenges facing those with side hustles. Let's discuss our next scenario, the side hustle security gap. Imagine you've got a thriving side gig. Maybe you're crafting artisanal dog treats, offering online tutoring, or designing websites. You're focused on growing your venture, but you haven't given much thought to securing your business financially. Taylor, as our resident learner, I'm curious, What springs to mind when you think about the unique security risks someone with a side hustle might face?
That's a great question, Alex. I guess since it's often something you do from home, or maybe even on the go, you might not have the same level of security you'd find in a traditional office setting. Like, what if you're using public Wi Fi to manage your side hustle's finances? Isn't that risky?
Absolutely, Taylor. Public Wi Fi is a prime example. It's convenient, but often lacks robust security. Someone with malicious intent could potentially intercept your data. Think usernames, passwords, even financial transactions. Another risk specific to side hustles is that people often underestimate the value of their business data. Maybe you have a unique recipe, a client list, or a design portfolio. These are assets, and they need protection just like your bank account.
That's a crucial point, Sam. This reminds me of what we discussed in our episode on digital identity. Just like we have a personal digital identity, our businesses, even small side hustles, have a digital footprint that needs safeguarding. So, how can someone with multiple income streams, say a full time job and a side hustle, streamline their security practices without getting overwhelmed? Taylor, what are your thoughts on this?
So, if I understand correctly, it's not just about protecting my personal finances, but also my side hustle's income and data. It almost sounds like I need a separate security setup for each. That seems like a lot to manage.
It doesn't have to be overwhelming, Taylor. Think of it as an extension of your existing security practices, not a completely separate system. One simple yet powerful strategy is to create separate email accounts and bank accounts for your side hustle. This creates a clear division between your personal and business finances, which simplifies accounting and limits the damage if one account is compromised.
That's excellent advice, Sam. Think of it like building separate firewalls. If a problem arises in one area, it's contained and doesn't spread to the other. Building on that, another key practice mentioned in our reference article is strong password management. Using a password manager can help you create unique, complex passwords for each account, minimizing the risk of a domino effect if one password is breached.
This is making a lot more sense now. So, starting with separate accounts and a password manager is a good foundation. What other simple steps can someone take?
Two-factor authentication wherever possible. This adds an extra layer of security. And consider cloud storage solutions specifically designed for businesses. They often offer enhanced security features compared to free personal accounts.
To recap, we've discussed the importance of separate accounts, strong passwords, two-factor authentication, and secure storage solutions. These are all actionable steps that can significantly boost your side hustle security. So, the key takeaway here is to treat your side hustle like the valuable asset it is and give it the security it deserves. Develop a security plan specifically for your side hustle, addressing data protection and financial management. Don't wait until something goes wrong. Start building that security foundation today. But even if you have everything meticulously organized, there's another layer of protection families need to consider. Protecting your 529 plan from cyberattacks. This is the topic of our next scenario. The 529 plan vulnerability. Imagine this. You've diligently saved for years in a 529 plan, only to have it targeted by hackers. This scenario highlights just how important strong passwords, two-factor authentication, and correctly designated beneficiaries are. So, Sam, as our security expert, what are some concrete steps parents can take to safeguard their 529 plans and other education savings accounts from these kinds of threats?
Absolutely, Alex. Just like any online account holding valuable information, 529 plans are potentially vulnerable. A strong, unique password is the first line of defense. Avoid easily guessable passwords like birthdays or pet names. Think passphrase, a longer, more complex phrase that's easier to remember than a random string of characters.
So, something like my favorite book is The Hobbit and I saw it in 2014.
Exactly, Taylor. That's a great example of a passphrase. Next, enable two-factor authentication wherever possible. This adds an extra layer of security, requiring a code from your phone or email in addition to your password. Even if someone cracks your password, they'll still need that second factor to access your account.
That's a really crucial point, Sam. It's like having a double lock on your front door. And Taylor, thinking practically, does that sound like something you'd be able to implement on your accounts?
Definitely. I already use two-factor authentication for my banking apps, so it wouldn't be too much of a stretch to add it to our future education savings accounts. This reminds me of what we discussed earlier about the overconfidence bias, thinking we're safe enough already. This shows how an extra layer of security can really make a difference.
Precisely. And a third key area is beneficiary designations. Make sure these are accurate and up to date. Regularly review them, especially after major life events like marriage, divorce, or the birth of another child. This ensures the funds go where you intend, even in unexpected circumstances.
Excellent point, Sam. So to recap, we've talked about strong passwords, two-factor authentication, and reviewing beneficiary designations. These are foundational steps. Sam, are there any other essential security features to consider when choosing a 529 plan provider?
Yes, look for providers that offer account activity alerts. These notifications can alert you to any unusual transactions, giving you a chance to react quickly if there's unauthorized access. Also, inquire about their security protocols and certifications. A reputable provider should be transparent about their security measures.
So, if I understand correctly, I should be looking for a provider that offers two-factor authentication, account activity alerts, and is transparent about their security practices. Is there a way to compare these features across different providers?
Absolutely. Many financial websites and publications offer comparisons of 529 plans, highlighting their security features among other things. Doing your research is key. So to summarize, protecting your college savings is as crucial as saving itself. Strong passwords, two-factor authentication, reviewing beneficiaries, and choosing a provider with robust security features are essential steps. Our call to action for this segment is simple but vital. Enable two-factor authentication on all your education savings accounts and double-check those beneficiary designations today. It only takes a few minutes and could save you a lot of heartache down the road. But what happens if, despite our best efforts, we lose the physical paperwork related to these accounts? That brings us to another common, yet often overlooked challenge. Our next scenario is the lost documentation. Imagine this. It's time to start using those hard-earned college savings. You've diligently contributed to your child's 529 plan for years, but now you can't find the crucial documents detailing account information, beneficiary designations, or even proof of contributions. This can lead to significant delays, added stress, and even potential financial loss. Taylor, this is something many families might not consider until it happens. What are your initial thoughts on the best way to organize and store these vital documents?
Honestly, Alex, it's a bit overwhelming to think about. We have a file cabinet crammed with papers, some related to our daughter's 529, but I wouldn't be confident I could quickly locate everything if needed. This reminds me of what we talked about earlier with digital identities, how important it is to have a system. Is a physical filing system even the best approach anymore?
Great question, Taylor. While a physical system can be part of the solution, it's definitely not the most secure or efficient in today's digital world. Think about it. Physical documents can be lost, damaged, or even stolen. A secure digital vault is the ideal solution. It's essentially an encrypted online storage space where you can store scanned copies of all essential documents, from account statements to beneficiary designations.
So, like a virtual safe deposit box?
Exactly. You can control access, granting permission to specific family members or trusted advisors. This brings us to your second question, Alex, about ensuring access in emergencies. With a digital vault, you can designate authorized individuals who can access these documents even if something happens to you.
So, if I understand correctly, Sam, creating a digital vault isn't just about organization, but also about security and accessibility. This sounds much better than rummaging through piles of paper, especially in a stressful situation like a medical emergency. But what about practicalities? Say my parents help contribute to the 529. Should they also have access?
Absolutely. You can grant them access to specific documents or folders within the vault, allowing them to stay informed while maintaining overall security. Think of it as a progressive system, from simple storage to complex access controls. to even allowing designated individuals to manage specific aspects of the account. And as a counterexample, consider the scenario where only one person has all the information and they become incapacitated. That could create a significant hurdle for the family.
That's a crucial point, Sam. It's about creating a safety net, not just for the documents themselves, but also for the family's financial well-being. Let's recap. Secure digital storage protects against loss or damage, organized systems enable efficient retrieval, and controlled access ensures that the right people can access information when needed.
This really brings together several concepts we've discussed: digital security, emergency preparedness, and even the behavioral aspects of financial planning. This time, instead of overconfidence bias, it's more about neglecting the what ifs.
Precisely, Taylor. So our call to action for this segment is clear. Create a secure digital vault for all your important financial documents, especially those related to college savings, and ensure multiple trusted individuals have access. But sometimes, the biggest hurdle isn't misplaced paperwork, it's a misplaced sense of security. That brings us to our next scenario. We are calling this scenario the overconfident family. This family believes they're cyber savvy. They use strong passwords, avoid clicking suspicious links, the whole 9 yards. They feel pretty much immune to online threats. But then, bam, they fall victim to a sophisticated phishing scam. Taylor, this idea of overconfidence, it's something we all grapple with, right? How can families avoid this bias when it comes to financial security?
Absolutely, Alex. It's easy to think, it won't happen to me. We're busy, we're careful, and we want to believe we're doing enough. This reminds me of what we discussed about status quo bias earlier, sticking with what we know even if it's outdated. But as technology evolves, so do the threats. Thinking we're safe just because we haven't had any problems yet is a risky approach. But Sam, how can a family that thinks they're cautious still fall prey to something like phishing?
Taylor, it's a great question. Phishing has become incredibly sophisticated. Think of it like this. Early phishing attempts were like a poorly drawn map leading to buried treasure. Obvious and easy to avoid. Now, phishing scams are like personalized invitations to a luxurious resort, tailored to your specific interests. They exploit our trust and familiarity, making it much harder to spot the deception. Even cautious individuals can be fooled. One common tactic is spear phishing, where attackers research their targets to craft highly personalized emails. It might appear to be from a trusted source, a bank, a colleague, even a family member.
So, if I understand correctly, even if a family is generally careful, they could still be vulnerable if they're not actively learning about the latest threats. It's like assuming you know all the traffic laws just because you passed your driving test years ago. New rules and regulations are constantly being introduced.
Exactly, Taylor. That's a perfect analogy. Sam, what are some other common threats that can trip up even the most cautious families?
Beyond phishing, there's malware disguised as legitimate software updates, ransomware attacks targeting valuable family photos and documents, and even SIM swapping, where attackers gain control of your phone number to bypass two-factor authentication. The reference article mentions protecting children's social security numbers. Those are prime targets. A child's identity can be stolen and exploited for years before it's even discovered.
Wow, that's scary. This makes me think about what you said about compartmentalizing. We might be vigilant about work security, but our home network is a different story. It reinforces the need for a holistic security approach.
Precisely. So, to recap, even if your family feels secure online, don't fall into the overconfidence trap. Regularly assess your security practices, stay updated on the latest threats, and foster a culture of open communication so everyone in the family feels comfortable reporting potential risks. It's like a family fire drill. You practice it regularly, even though you hope you never have to use it. This ties in perfectly with our next scenario, the status quo trap, where we'll explore how sticking with outdated security measures can leave families vulnerable. Before we continue, a quick call to action. Regularly assess your family's security practices and stay updated on the latest online threats. Your family's financial future depends on it. Let's delve into another common bias that can leave us vulnerable, the status quo trap. Imagine a family Maybe like the Thompsons we discussed earlier, who've had the same passwords and security settings for years. They think, hey, it's worked so far, why change? This, my friends, is the status quo bias in action.
Right. It's that if it ain't broke, don't fix it mentality. But with technology changing so fast, what worked 5 years ago might be completely inadequate now. It reminds me of when we talked about adapting our investment strategies to market changes. Security needs the same flexible approach, right?
Exactly, Taylor. That's a great parallel. Sam, can you elaborate on why it's so crucial to regularly update security measures, especially in the context of today's rapidly evolving cyber threats?
Absolutely. Think of it like your home's locks. A simple deadbolt might have been enough decades ago, but now you likely have multiple locks, maybe even a security system. Cyber threats are constantly evolving, becoming more sophisticated. Old passwords, outdated software, these are like leaving your front door wide open in a bad neighborhood. Regular updates are your digital deadbolts, security system, and neighborhood watch combined.
So if I understand correctly, it's not just about having security measures, it's about making sure they're current and can handle the latest threats. But how do we actually break free from this status quo trap? It's easy to stick with what's familiar, even if it's not the best.
That's the million-dollar question. Sam, any practical tips for families who want to be more proactive about updating their security practices?
Start with small, manageable steps. Schedule a family security review every 6 months, like the Thompsons did. During these reviews, update passwords, check privacy settings on social media, review your bank statements for any unusual activity. Think of it like a fire drill, but for your digital life.
That makes sense. A regular check-in to make sure everything's up to par. What about keeping up with new threats? It can be overwhelming trying to stay informed about all the latest scams and vulnerabilities.
Excellent point. Subscribe to reputable security blogs or newsletters. Many antivirus software companies offer resources on current threats. And, importantly, talk about it as a family. Educate your kids about phishing scams and online safety. It's everyone's responsibility.
That's such a crucial point, Sam. Building that security-conscious culture at home, like we talked about earlier, is so important. It empowers everyone to be proactive. So, to recap, overcoming the status quo trap requires acknowledging that security is an ongoing process, not a one-time setup. Regular reviews, updates, and education are key to staying ahead of evolving threats. But before we move on, remember our call to action. Schedule a family security review today. Even 15 minutes can make a huge difference in protecting your family's financial well-being. And that wraps up another empowering episode of Safe, Simple Sound. Today, we tackled the vital topic of family financial security for those of you in the 35 to 44 age range, drawing inspiration from the insightful article, Family Financial Security, Protecting Your Growing Prosperity. We explored the crucial need to bridge that security gap between our professional and personal lives. Remember that compartmentalization bias? We covered protecting your children's digital identities, securing both your business and personal finances, safeguarding those college savings, and even discussed how our own behavioral biases can impact our security decisions. The story of the Thompsons, who discovered their son's SSN had been compromised, really highlighted the importance of proactive security measures. I think the discussions around separating business and personal finances, especially for entrepreneurs juggling side hustles, were particularly relevant for many of our listeners. It's all about creating that secured financial foundation we talk about here at Safe Simple Sound, seizing control, embracing cash flow mastery, and building a true legacy for your family. A huge thank you for joining us today. We truly appreciate you being part of the Safe Simple Sound community. Don't forget to check out our show notes for all the resources mentioned today, and be sure to subscribe so you don't miss our next episode, where we'll be exploring security strategies for the 55 to 54 age group, focusing on protecting established wealth and building those lasting legacies. Until then, keep building that financial flexibility, keep those security conversations going within your family, and keep moving forward on your path to financial freedom. This is Alex, signing off.